Let's give it a go. Roland, just so you know, we'll make this session by voice, so everyone can ask questions, and then it's more of a conversation and not just me reading the questions, giving one sentence answer, and then someone, going to the next one. I think everyone being able to talk will allow us to go more in depth, hopefully. So just to start off, a very quick recap of my profile. I did masters in mechatronics in Poland. Then I spent 1 year on Erasmus in Trondheim in Norway at NTNU. Then straight after that, I went to UK to work in the company making autopilots for drones. So fixed wings, helicopters, multirotors, and so on.
Which company was it?
Sorry?
What's the name of that company?
It's called Sky Circuits. They're based in southern England. Quite cool autopilots, but usually, at least when I was there, they were aimed at professional applications. So quite expensive if you wanted to, use them for hobby stuff. And then after Sky Circuits, I started working at Terabi. This is a company making single point light sensors. They are based in France, next to border with Switzerland. I've been there for roughly 2 years as well. And then after that, I started consulting, mostly on mobile robots, drones, and ROS. And I've been doing that for 3 years now. Yeah, so that's like a very high level picture of what my experience is. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them.
So you basically went, oh yeah, wait, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I choose you, Roy.
Sorry, I wonder, how did you transition from working, maybe full-time, I guess, to full-time consulting, or was that a gradual change, or how did that transition go?
It was actually relatively sudden. I've decided that I want to try it. I was thinking about it quite a lot, but I've decided that I wasn't too happy working for other people, and decided that I want to try it for myself. And my idea at the time was that I had savings for about 6 months of living in Geneva. And then I will try this out, and if it doesn't work, I can work in the shop stocking shelves, and I'll be all right. But it worked. So when I put in my notice, I didn't have any work aligned, but then I actually found a company 2 weeks after I gave my notice, so I was still working for Terabi. And this company is Robotics, and I've been working with them since then, so close to 3 years as well. So that was a very good opportunity, apparently.
Okay, thanks. Then Roland, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. But then how did you find your first client? I mean, that's did you just cold call everybody and say, "Well, buy some robots"?
I actually didn't do any cold calling since I started. I've set up on Upwork, so this is this platform for for freelancers, and I've been getting about 80 to 90% projects there, and the rest of the project comes from my blog. So I didn't post so much lately, but this was quite a good stream of projects from there. Because sometimes people will find some useful article for them, and they actually want something related to that I've covered. So that's actually quite good source. And then I maybe had 1 or 2 clients acquire through Weekly Robotics, but it's Weekly Robotics is not that good for finding clients. Actually, it's more for researching robotics,
which I think is a pretty good use of your time. But then, so through Upwork, are these like small projects, big projects? Kind of how many hours is each project roughly?
It really depends. These days I'm focused mostly on long-term projects. So I'm less likely to take a project if it's just one thing to do, because having long-term clients is it's a bit safer, and it's also like you have this continuity that you are working for something and then you see results long-term, and it's not just one Python script for someone and then you go out. So long-term is preferred for me. And yeah, nowadays, the two active projects I have right now are long-term. So I've been working on them for over a year.
What projects are these, by the way? Or what kind of things are you building now?
So the first one is with Robotics. So if you've seen this, so this is the company I've mentioned that I've started working with them when I started consulting. And I've been, so they make modular robots based on ROS. So we have, for example, motor modules. So motor attached to the wheel, and then you can just replace it in 10 seconds. Or you can plug and play some navigation modules and so on. So the design is really cool, and they have these connectors that are very special and allow you to do that. And the second project I have right now is about making autonomous boats. So if the boats, it will scan the shore and build a model of the lake. So both underwater and above water. And then we can do some volume calculations and some other neat stuff.
A question from my side. So basically, I've been doing sort of like consulting on my spare time for the past 2 years, but not specifically in robotics. I've been jumping across disciplines from AI to gaming to simulations and robotics. But at the same time, I feel that some of my interests lie in extreme robotics, space, subsea, and aerial robotics. And I don't see a lot of commercial opportunities out there. A lot of them are research-based. But I do see that everything is becoming simulation-based since hardware is getting standardized in terms of reinforcement learning or physically based simulations. You see any commercial viability in those domains, like purely software-based robotics than working with real-world hardware?
So I'm not sure I've captured that fully. So if I see any commercial opportunities for such extreme robotics, or
yeah, which is typically simulation based or software based, not just extreme but even industrial or common robotics.
To be honest, not much. Sometimes there will be some I've seen some projects about, for example, underwater robotics, not necessarily simulation based. To be honest, I don't remember. But most of the projects I see are actually quite basic. So we want to have the robot and we want to do this specific task with this robot. So this
Right.
could be inspection, or like I said, the project I did was mapping some shores or lakes. And I didn't see too many things that were really, in depth. And the problem with commercial stuff, when you think about space robotics or underwater robotics, I think it can be really hands-on. So you need to be physically at client's location, because otherwise, as you said, simulation could be interesting. But also, if you are working remotely for this team, it might be a bit more difficult for you to get the knowledge from the people that has this hands-on expertise.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't have too specific data on that, so sorry.
Right. Yeah.
I have a question, Matt.
Yeah, go on.
Can you think of someone who you've met in consulting who really seems to have it like completely figured out? Like they have, robotics, independent consulting, sort of employment scenario, and they work with different companies, but they are like the shining star of like, this is the best possible situation that I've ever seen anyone in as far as a robotics consultant.
Yeah. No, unfortunately not. I've met a couple of people, but I wouldn't say my impression of them wasn't that they have it all figured out. And I'm thinking that at least lately, I'm wondering if there's anyone there that has it all figured out. Because in robotics, you have so many aspects that are intertwined. You have software, mechanical, electrical, and honestly, I don't think you would be able to build expertise in all of these areas. So you are like a full stack roboticist that can do very good quality consulting. But what I'm thinking is, if you hire a consultant, you want them to do some specific task, and you want them to do it well, like top of the line. Maybe better that, at least on the same level as the people you have in house. And then to find a person that would be able to do both software, mechanical, electrical, it would be amazing. And then you would probably want to hire this person.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess I wonder, even if it's a specific domain, like, maybe someone who just does, who just builds autonomy systems in simulation or something like that, and that's the only thing you do. I guess I'm kind of wondering what the top tier of this is a really good job, really good way to be working. I have a I have the business side of my consulting figured out really well. Maybe charge really high rates, get work all the time. I'm trying to think of like what the who fits in that kind of category. Right.
Yeah, so I didn't find anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least I didn't have a chance to work with them or see their work. But it's there's lots of people that I have chat with every now and then, and they ask me some questions about consulting, and they want to get into it, but I'm not sure many of them did, because it's also quite a bit of risk involved usually, and people don't want to make a jump, or they think about consulting and then they find work before they make a jump. So it all depends.
Yeah, that's I think it's interesting. So from my experience, I've seen lots of small companies that can charge really high rates, sell work all the time and things like that. But I think as far as individuals, it's hard for me to think of people that I know also.
Yeah, I think it's for companies, it's also a bit easier because you can distribute the work. So we can have someone who is an expert on autonomy, someone who's expert in ROS, someone on mechanical side, electrical, and then that way you can probably provide all kinds of values, not just single focus. Or maybe it's the next step. So you start consulting individually, and then you build a company. So I've been actually thinking about that, but didn't make any decisions yet.
I just wonder if someone really figured out how to do this and is the star, would he be even willing? Would they be willing to share how they did it? Will they even tell you if they do figure out the perfect way to do this and make a killing in it?
I think, well, it depends on the person for sure, but I found that this consulting, it's not really a zero-sum game. So it's not a fixed set of contracts that we have to fight over. But instead, when people ask me for advice, I just give it to them because for me, it's better to, get to know someone that can deliver this high quality work, because then if I'm too busy on something, I can suggest this person to a company, or it can go the other way around. So I think it's better to build relationships in such cases. But maybe it's just me, so I don't know.
Yeah.
In terms of platforms to find work, what all would you recommend, apart from, let's say, the popular ones like Upwork?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yeah, in order to find projects, what platforms would you recommend apart from Upwork for robotics?
Yeah. So from my experience, Upwork worked really well for me. Not using it too much these days, but well, not actively looking there for jobs. But other than that, I tried some platform, but they weren't as good. For example, there is one called Gun.io, but it's more targeted towards software development, not purely robotics. And didn't find any jobs there that were interesting. And then, yeah, lots of, well, not many projects, but some inquiries come from my blog. So I try to do this very technical post, and then someone can see it and then decide to work with me. There's actually a question from Cameron on the chat that I missed. And the question is, how often do you receive projects on Upwork? So these days, not very often, because I don't, since I'm almost fully booked now, I don't look for new projects. So I tend not to accept new ones unless it's something that's with potential to be a very long term or very profitable.
If there is something interesting, how big is the competition? Are you and James basically like bidding against each other to get a project, or like lowering them, I guess, or
Yeah,
how big is the space of robotics consultants actually?
Well, I'm not a consultant, FYI.
Okay,
But yeah,
I got that idea somehow. Not sure how.
I actually might have bid against James' company at one point. Like someone inquired me about some teleoperated robotics for buildings, for construction. So maybe we bid against each other and we didn't know.
there's so many. It's always hard to know.
But on Upwork, I had this at one point. I bought this premium Upwork service where they allowed me to see the amount of bids that the projects were getting, and I don't think I've seen more than 10 to 15 bids for the projects I was interested in.
And how many projects are there on a regular basis? So what I'm kind of trying to figure out is how big is the supply actually, and how big is the demand actually? Because I have no clue how big they are for both sides actually.
So supply, I don't really check competition on Upwork, so I don't know how many freelancers there are that do these kinds of things. But I've been seeing maybe 2 or 3 projects that are that I would consider to be quality projects on Upwork a month. So I would, if I had some spare time, I would probably bid on these projects. And sometimes if they are really interesting, then I do bid on them, but I'm not too pushy right now.
What's the average duration that you see on Upwork, the project duration?
It's very hard to tell because, as I said, the two projects I have, it's one more than a year and second one 3 years. But I've had projects that lasted for 10 minutes, and I had projects that lasted for a couple of days, a week, 2 weeks, 1 day, 2 days. Yeah,
Right.
there's not really a number that I could give here.
Do you find that there's any tools that you always set up for all of your clients, or is there like, yeah, what like specific software packages or other tools that you find that kind of you can reuse in every single project, or is it kind of always custom?
Yeah, I think this is very specific now, but when you work with ROS, especially on mobile robots, at least I tend to find these packages that seem to work well or have this basic ROS setup in my head. So for example, for the mobile robot that is skid steering on diff drive, for me, it's you take whatever ESCs you have, you basically have some control node, and then you use the ROS control to connect to them. And then, yeah, you use diff drive stock controller, and then have the basic, and then maybe the robot localization for AKF. And then you have this basic robot working that can move in all around, and then the fun stuff begins. So what does the customer actually want to do with that? And for localization, it really depends on the project, but I do like Slam Toolbox quite a lot. And for example, recently I did some work with behavior trees. So behavior tree CPP, and this is like super good for orchestration, like planning some high-level tasks. And then, if someone comes to me with the problem that might feature these packages, then depending on the client, I can tell him, like, I know these packages, had used them, that they are very good, really like how they work. We can reuse them. Or if I know some alternatives, I can provide alternatives, and then they can make a decision. I think the good thing here is being very open about what you know and what you don't know. And also, if you know all the strengths of the packages, and you have experience in that, it's very easy to, for the clients, it's quite important, because they don't have to spend so much money on R&D because you already know this stuff.
One question. Do you find yourself going down some rabbit holes sometimes when you think something is simple and then it gets complicated? And then how do you deal with clients who think you've got a short-term engagement and but really, have gotten in over their heads? Or do you have situations like that?
Yeah, so it's been quite a while since I've been in a rabbit hole like that, but I had this happen, and I think it really depends on the clients and on the arrangement you have. What I did at one point, I've told a client that I estimated that this work would take 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we would be done. And then it didn't, because I ran into some issues I didn't expect. And in that case, because I told him that I would get this done in this amount of time, I apologized because I underestimated it. And then I did the work for free on my free time, on unbilled time, because, well, I said that it would cost this much, so I wanted to keep my word. And in other cases, if I have doubts about something, I openly say that I'm not sure. I can try to estimate it, but I cannot know for sure about all the problems that may arise. And then usually customers are understanding, and they know that this might require some R&D and some additional time.
Okay, no, it's interesting to know, because I guess I'm just looking at scenarios that are tough for consulting when, where if you're an employee, then it's okay, the project's going a little bit longer than anticipated. But for a consultant, especially if you're doing lots of short gigs, those free additional hours can really add up and eat into your bottom line as well if you're not careful.
Yeah, so I think being very honest about things you know and don't know, or any problems that might arise, is very important. And also being open about the issues you find along the way. So, for example, you can find that 3 hours in that, okay, this might be problematic. So you can signal this already to the client. And then you see how it unfolds. But then if I'm in such state, I try to give as much feedback as possible, so they are in the loop on all the progress that happens.
So I wonder do you often take on fixed price projects, or do you work on on an hourly basis, or how? I guess it varies, of course, but how's that typically? How's that typically done?
Yeah, I think I did maybe one fixed project or two since I started, and most are time-based. And one of the reasons is that the work that I'm doing is mostly R&D. So if you are in R&D work, you need to be very, very good. Well, if you do fixed price projects, you need to be very good at estimating. And since in R&D things can go wrong, and often will, this can quickly cut into your bottom line. But on the other hand, fixed price projects can bring you more revenue if you do them correctly. Because if you do the fixed price project, you usually should charge. Well, as a consultant, you should charge by your estimate, so your best guess plus some safety factor, and then you probably add some premium on that. And this premium is what I would say, this gives confidence to the person hiring you that this will cost so much and you won't cross this budget. So that's I really like this idea, and I was wanted to experiment with that, but I didn't find suitable projects yet.
How do you manage hardware dependencies for R&D projects? If you're dealing with very custom hardware or sensors, so do you visit the client's location physically, or
yeah,
how does it
that's
work?
a good question. So for this, I'm really really thankful for Ross, because lots of the work I do is with Ross. So there's lots of things you can do online. If you use simulation, if you can review the back files, or if you can structure your project so that you can input the raw data from back files, you can already do quite a lot. But some hardware integration is inevitable in all robotics projects. So when I take the project, I try to, well, before I take the project, I try to resolve that. So this has to be discussed before I commit to anything, because I found that if someone integrates the hardware who is not very, who doesn't have experience in that, it takes so much time, or even if they have experience, it can be, it can take probably 3 times more because of all the back and forth that has to go between you who are explaining how to mount the sensor to make sure that the orientation is correct. While if you were physically there, you would just go take the sensor, mount it, check that the axis align with your robot frame or with your robot description, and then you are sorted. So yeah, but how I resolve that is sometimes customers will ship the hardware to me, and then I will perform some integration and then ship it back. Or otherwise, there's an option that for long-term project, they can buy the hardware and ship it directly to me, and then I keep this hardware for the duration of the project and can prototype. So this works. This is probably the best option, second to, well, flying me to the customer location.
Do you have a way to estimate how much like unbillable time you factor in when you're doing these projects as well?
Not really.
In general, like if you're thinking, you know, as a consultant, maybe I have, you know, 1,000 billable hours, you know, and the rest is out looking for work, doing that sort of back and forth, or
I don't track it currently. I probably should, but then I would probably get depressed. No, yeah, it's not that much for me right now because I have these 2 projects that are ongoing and I'm not really looking for new ones right now. But if I was to factor working on the newsletter in that, the newsletter takes between 5 to 8 hours a week. So this is basically a working day just for the newsletter. But yeah, but I consider the newsletter is more like a side project. So I don't consider it part of my consultancy, even though it lands me, yeah, it connects me to 2 potential clients.
Oh, so you wouldn't rope that into like your marketing efforts, or?
Yeah, it kinda is, but it's I don't really care about it that much. So I mean, I will write some blog posts. I will add the link there. But if I didn't, yeah, it would be probably the same to me. I'm just, you know, treating it as a good practice to share my work there as well, if I have anything to show.
So it's not treated as sort of as a client funnel to bring you more work.
No, it's more like motivation to research stuff that's going on, because I have to send this newsletter every week, so I have to look into what's going on in the industry, and I think this is more value for me than potential customers, or yeah, for me personally to research stuff and grow than for me to find clients and so on.
Yeah. Interesting scenario where sometimes I find that, yeah, people that write really good newsletters, they're in that weird space of being, you know, somewhat valuable sometimes they're incredibly, you know, those little tiny nuggets of knowledge that you wouldn't come across otherwise can really be super valuable too, like from a, you know, a client perspective, or, you know, when you're putting something out there, that can really cement, okay, this person knows what they're talking about, or I think they're going to be the one that's going to have the right solution for me. But it's I don't know.
So I think for me, the blog is more this kind of thing. So well, I'm trying now to post more often in there, and I feel like the way I treat weekly robotics is it's an independent project sort of. So if there is any, for example, I was hoping that I'm hoping I will find some companies that will support it. And this is not part of my consultancy if there are some sponsors, but there's some way for it to keep growing, and then maybe make me some money for all this time that I've spent on this. But it's also since it's parallel to my consulting, I'm also happy to keep paying for this. But also, since we have some Patreon supporters, lots of them here, then it pays for itself as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
So one killer question, I guess, is how do you figure out what you should charge a customer? I mean, I guess it should cover your living expenses, but then what? Tough question, maybe. Or I'm not sure if you want to answer, but
How much do you earn, Matthias?
I'm not gonna ask that.
Since I said it's an AMA, so you can ask this question. I think since I started, I've earned about slightly over 150,000 just on Upwork. In total, maybe it will be 170, 180, something like that, probably. So I would say it's probably an okay-ish European engineer salary. But I don't know what's the European salaries right now. So maybe not that good actually. But it's okay-ish. And for about charging for projects, no, I just the way I started was that I would pick I had some starting price, and the first project started with this price, and then I would keep increasing my rate with every project. Sometimes it varied, sometimes it went up and down, but now I've settled to around $100 per hour for a project that's very long term, so probably upwards of 10 hours a week, and 150 for some really short projects. So sometimes someone who wants 5 hours of my time. This is probably quite high, but also I believe that I'm giving customers a really good value for the money.
Yeah, thanks. Great answers.
A question from me. What's your take on ROS for self-driving cars? Since that's becoming popular, how do you see consulting opportunities in self-driving industry?
So this is it's a tricky subject. For me personally, it would depend on the kind of work that I would be doing, because self-driving cars, it's not much like I don't have any experience in that, and I would be very hesitant to take any any project like this, or any other projects where any of my decisions have impact on safety. So I would never put some code on the car and then make it go on the street. without some formal methods and spending a good amount of time studying all the safety aspects that are required, code standards, testing protocols, and so on. So I would be hesitant to take on this project, but I think with ROS2 and AutoWare, they are certifying the software. So I'm quite optimistic about that, but I don't know in details how it works. I just hope it's what is it called? There's this company that has this tool that you have on your phone, and it's machine learning, I think, in Python on your phone that can steer your car. I forgot the name.
Comma AI,
Yeah.
Comma.ai. They approached me a couple of months ago, but nope.
Yeah. So for me, this is very scary. Like you have this any kind of phone, and I don't trust Android phones at all. And it's basically driving your car. So and the worst thing is that it's not only impacting your safety, but anyone around you as well. So for me, this is highly irresponsible. And if someone approached me for this kind of thing, I would say no straight away. No matter
What
what
did they
my
approach you for, Lloyd?
no, that they didn't.
But Lloyd said that they approached him, but I was wondering why, like for a normal job or for a consulting project?
Also for a job. I'm not a consultant, considering it as well, hence my questions. But no, they approached me for a job because they were setting up a shop also in the Netherlands. But yeah, for the same reasons as Matt says, okay, you can't have a neural net on a phone driving your car around. That's just crazy. I'm not going to get involved in that.
Mm.
Yeah, it's the George was also a bit of a crazy person, but it's fun to think about stuff anyways. Lloyd, you're muted.
I was considering to go into the interview and give them like this talk about, okay, what you guys are doing is crazy, but I said, okay, that's a waste of time. Let's just say nope.
Yeah. I still have to reply to your message, Matthias, but I can probably give a talk on safety for self-driving vehicles if people are interested. Lloyd, you're muted again.
I'm not saying anything, but I would be very interested in your talk, Ronald. Roland, sorry. Would be very interested.
Yeah, I think we've scheduled it already, right? I think we've scheduled the talk already.
Yeah, I just have to tell you okay, but hereby okay. I think it was the 13th of May. Let me actually put it in my calendar.
So yeah, it's coming.
Also, what's the general nature of the work that you do? Because robotics is very broad. Again, is it mostly like debugging and getting things to work, or architecting something from scratch? What's the nature of work that you mostly do?
So mostly, I would call it software integration or / software development for robotics. So most of the clients have some platform, they want to add ROS on it and then make it do something, some defined task. And then I help with that. And it will depend on the project, of course, but sometimes this will be integrating all the stacks, so from motor control all the way to the behavior trees. Or sometimes it will be just this small thing that they need fixing, or sometimes it will be just tuning of some robot localization, for example, or some other packages to make sure that the sensing and perception is good quality.
So now I wonder, did you ever log into a robot through SSH and just pressed go with somebody else holding the e-stop and hoping for the best? Give me the cowboy stories.
Yeah, it can happen, especially if you are working remotely for someone who doesn't have ROS experience. That way, having been, having an access, direct access to the machine with the whole system is probably a good idea, because then I could see things going, what's going on in real time. I think you're muted.
Yeah, no, but yeah, sounds cool. Did the same thing a couple of weeks ago. Just, okay, guys, I'm going to press enter, and then we're going to go have the stop, and then it works, but pretty cool.
Catch it and press the safety button if you don't hear from me in 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's when everyone learns that you have to put your robot on a block on the table instead of just putting it on the table. And it doesn't just shoot off right away.
Yeah. Another question then. What was the worst experience you've had with a customer, like in terms business-wise or skill-wise, or that they had or were lacking, or that kind of stuff?
Fortunately, I didn't have too many bad experiences. One bad experience that you can have with a client is when they are not respecting your time and your expertise. At least that's how it can feel. So, for example, someone takes you on the project, and then they keep asking you to, for example, I need to tune this robot localization. Can you do it for me now, please? It will take you 5 minutes, so ideally don't charge me for that. And this is, for me, this is not a very good place to be in, because then you are not selling your time anymore. You are just giving it away for free. And then the argument that these kinds of clients have is that it will take you only 5 minutes. But your argument in that case is that it took you however long you've been learning and working to get to the stage where when it takes you 5 minutes. So I think, this kind of situations happen. And I've seen that happen mostly with the clients that bargain a lot. So if you give them the price, they tell you that no, let's do it in with half the cost and probably half the time, and then it's some kind of good indicator. The other bad experience I had, well, relatively bad, well, not super bad, but I didn't enjoy, was that sometimes you take this huge amount of time to talk to the client, understand what they want to do, how you can help them, and then everything is finalized, you agreed on the price, and then they send you some NDA and some documents, and then you read the documents and they say that they want you to sign some non-compete agreement for the whole industry for 3 years after finishing the contract. So as a consultant, this is a no-go for me, because then this cuts me out from the whole industry. And then apart from that, I don't recall any situations that would be really bad or I didn't enjoy. It's mostly most of the time, I think 99% of the time I have a good experience with clients. Oh, there was one. Well, it wasn't really a client, because I wasn't paid for that, but I had someone inquire about the project where I would do some research for them. And this would be very similar to the work done for Weekly Robotics. So I've sent the proposal with the price per hour. And then it all seemed good that we had some chats, I think 2 or 3 long calls to discuss how this can work and agreed on everything. Usually I don't do any free work, so I do what I would call a courtesy call, where I discuss the project for 30 minutes with the client for free without any strings attached. And I'm more than happy to, help in this 30 minutes. So give any information I can to help them solve the problem. And in this case, and usually after that, the next interaction I would expect to be paid. And in this particular case, I really like the idea of the project, and they asked me to perform some research for them on some drones and regulations. And I reluctantly agreed, and then I did, but I've warned them that I would do about 30 minutes to 1 hour. No, actually probably about 1 hour of research for that, and write a short document. And it went through that they were all happy. Apparently they had more people doing that, and they've decided that they would work with me, and then they will be in touch. And then they got in touch, and they would ask me to go do some documentation on legged robots for them. And then they would pay me 1/3 of my hourly rate for about 4 hours of work. So it was a huge letdown, and that's quite reinforced me into sticking to some practices that I set up for the business side of the consulting.
Right. Oh, thanks. Interesting. So, building on that, so do you have any? Have you ever had long periods where you didn't have any work at all, or did you, I don't know, have some? Is there any type of insurance you can get for the kind of role, or some association you can? I don't know how that would work, but
I don't know of any, but I didn't look into this kind of insurances. I know you can get business insurance, and then it would cover if you are sued and things like that. But I'm not sure about lack of work. And I was fortunate enough to not have any periods of no work since I started. So it's been a constant flow of work. But that's also thanks to some projects being long term. If you, I think if your goal is to have long term projects, then you reduce this risk quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
You ever have clients who want something impossible, like Matthias, can you program me a completely self-driving car, 2 hours of work?
Actually, if you go on Upwork, there's lots of projects like that, and they won't say 2 hours, but they will say they are paying you $100 for a self-driving car.
To be honest, on Fiverr, you also sometimes see people basically advertising their machine learning skills as, I can program your self-driving car, 25 euros. I'm like, I should try this.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't even trust my RC card to that.
Maybe I'm actually now willing to spend the 25 euros or something. They sometimes ask for crazy good machine learning projects to see what they come up with as a But so what do you do with those kind of, or how do you filter possible projects from impossible projects?
That's a good question. I think so. There's a good question about possible, impossible. So let's start with that. Sometimes I had quite interesting projects coming, and this was purely consultancy. So someone had this idea of a, for example, construction robot that would do a very specific task on a site. And they wanted this robot to be about 15 kilograms of weight for a mobile robot. And these people didn't have experience in robotics. So, this sounds, and this kind of work is, if this is exploratory work, so where they ask me to research what's possible currently and if they can meet all the requirements, that's really interesting work. And then after this piece of work, if the project is possible or impossible. But sometimes you will know that straight away. For example, I don't think I have examples straight off the top of my head. No, don't have any examples right now of impossible projects that I came across. But usually my approach is if I see a project that I know is impossible to do, I'm quite open about this to the client. So I would say, I don't think it can really work out. I can check it for you, and and I'm happy to be paid for that. But I also want to make sure that the customer understands that there might be some limitations coming from physics for executing this. And then, I'm usually more than happy not to get this work, because if I was to take an impossible project, then the client wouldn't be happy because I wouldn't be able to get it done. And I wouldn't be happy because I wouldn't get paid, and it would be really frustrating. So, yeah, I think to sum it up, the best thing you can do is, if you really know, then communicate it, or don't take it at all, like don't bother spending time. Or if you think it's borderline possible, you can be very open about this as well. You can say that we need to check how feasible it is with the current software and hardware available out there, and see what we can do with this. I actually know some projects that were impossible. Didn't go too much into them, but had some projects about phone cases that fly your phone. So you attach the case, you have some unfolding propellers, or propellers that are just right here, and then it's perfect for taking selfies with your phone. Those are interesting. I'm really waiting for them to show it, because it's, honestly, I don't think it's possible with current hardwares. Yeah, hardware mostly. But I would love to be proven wrong. Sorry?
Did you see the video by Mark Rober or not?
No, I didn't see. Which
Oh
one?
man, I'll send it to you, because it is possible. Peter Schiphol made it, actually.
Okay.
I'll send you the video.
Okay, I'll do that, and I will be more than happy. If it can really fly my phone for more than 5 minutes with the battery that's not much heavier than my phone, then I'll be very interested.
Yeah, don't know if that is possible. Theoretically it's possible.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a cool video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, indeed, Cameron and is right that Peter Schiphol and Mark Rober are great YouTube channels.
Mm-hmm. I need to check this.
Maybe where are most of your projects located? Is it mostly Europe based, or do you also get American and Chinese projects? Or
I think it's mostly Europe and US. I had some projects from Australia, for example, one project from India. Yeah, a couple of projects from yeah, continental Europe, and quite some from UK as well. In my experience, UK and US is really good to work with, but maybe that's, as you know, that's just one data point.
Any specific bad experiences or countries you should avoid? Netherlands?
No, not really. I think it's mostly a question of people that you end up working with, not the countries themselves.
So, any Dutch clients? Just not that much Dutch robotics, but yeah.
I think I might have one project, but it was very short. It was about, yeah, three days hackathon, basically trying to get some software shipped before a deadline, but not. Yeah, I don't recall any others.
So, Roland, you're also Dutch. I could tell by the accent. Sorry. So, where are you based?
I am. Your internet is terrible, by the way, Loy, or my internet is terrible. I don't know which it is, but I'm based in Munich. Because Munich is a way better city for robotics. And actually, I work in Sweden now, so I don't know where you should live.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm trying to be very international, I guess. No, but I don't know, the robot scene in the Netherlands isn't that big or exciting, especially if you like more personal robots.
More what robots?
If you kind of more like the personal robots, the Netherlands is really big on agriculture and fabrication, and not that big on driving cars. But maybe that's a question for Matthias. What kind of areas are you mostly interested in? Do you just take anything, or do you have things you're specifically good at?
I think I've grown into this niche of, well, it's not very niche, but mobile robots running ROS. So this is quite a, I know it's quite a vast topic, but that's most of my projects right now. And I've also grew really comfortable with anything mobile robot based. And if they are deep drivers or skid steering, then it's even better. And it's super easy right now. Yeah, I think ROS2 will be very interesting for me, and I've been planning since forever to look into it, but I never have time for this. But I think now is a good time to start switching, because otherwise, yeah, consulting in ROS1 when everyone is using ROS2 would be a bad place to be.
Yeah, the problem with ROS is also that more people should switch and port their packages to make it even more useful. It get more useful, actually.
Yeah, but then you have 90% of packages where the PhD graduated, and there's no one left.
Yeah, no one's going to port those.
Yeah.
That's already a state at ROS where you kind of need the right operating system and have the stars aligned perfectly if you download a random package. Yeah. But yeah, on the other hand, if you find the right packages, it can really help you. Adrian asked a question, by the way.
Yeah, I came late, so I don't know if it's been answered before. But...
Yeah, so you were asking if there are any tools that I've built or to help build projects for separate clients, or what tools do you see yourself coming back to over and over again? So for the tools, I've kind of mentioned that before, that with ROS and especially mobile robots, you have this set of packages that help you build the standard robot, like deep drive controller or ROS control, then whole move base. No, yeah,
Move it?
move it. Move base. Yeah, there's like, yeah, moving the robot. Basically anything in ROS that makes move the robot. So I have this figured out, and also robot localization, maybe some stamp packages, and when you, since I have quite a lot of experience in them, I usually, this is my preferred stack to, set of packages to look into. And then if customers needs anything else, then yeah, I try to clearly communicate that we can, research that, see how it fits with the robot and so on. There's not many tools that I've built myself actually that are open or that I'm shipping to clients. Most of the things that I build in my spare time is some prototypes. So for example, I've been playing recently with some GNSS RTK modules, very good 1 centimeter accuracy. Will be super cool for a mobile robot. And I think, yeah, building something that others can use is very, very good for the community. Not sure how good is it for the developer. I think lots of developers are struggling with the financing of their work. At least that's the impression I get from looking at the internet. So for me, it's, one thing is that I didn't find this niche package that I could create that would be useful to the community. That hasn't been done already. I would much rather contribute to something that exists, if there's a thing like that. Otherwise, I prefer these integration tasks. So I would prefer to write a blog post that's very technical, like I did some on ROS web tutorials. And I think these are the most popular blog posts that I've written. And, be helpful to community in that way. And also this brings me clients as well, having a good blog. So that sounds like a win-win. Do you guys have any other questions?
Yeah, so I have some questions related to like your work. When you work on the projects, do you use your own PC, or do you have like some hardware sent from the companies?
Sorry, can you repeat? I think your audio is sketchy.
Okay, so about that, when you work, do you use your own PC? Maybe I'll text.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all the work that I'm doing is on my PC, at least the development part. Then when if, for example, this software needs to be deployed on the robot, then it depends. If I have the same single board computer, for example, so Raspberry Pi or Jetson Nano or whatever, then I'm happy to use it for the client to test the software. Otherwise, if I don't have it personally, yeah, I try it on their software, but it's only for deployment. Everything I do on my own computer, and yeah. So Darko had a question. Do you think the compensation is affected because of working from Switzerland? So this was, so I'm not based in Switzerland anymore. I moved to Czech Republic end of last year, but certainly being based in Switzerland at the beginning affected my pricing because, yeah, being the most expensive city in Europe, yeah, required me to make some good money. So it certainly affected it, and now I feel okay charging the same rate because I deliver the same value to the customer, and at the end of the day, that's what the customer should care about, and not where I'm located and what I'm paying for my apartment. And there is a question from Adam. So is there a situation when there are multiple projects in the same workspace? Adam, do you mean workspace as a ROS workspace, or workspace as a place where I am working on the robots? Yeah, so this really, so Adam clarified that the question is if I use the same ROS distribution for all the projects. So this will depend on the customers and their hardware, but lots of the time this is if I'm recommending a system and the client is not looking into R&D, I was so far recommending ROS Melodic because at that time when I looked into it, not all the packages were ported to Noetic. But right now, I think I would go with Noetic because if I was making a recommendation because of the Python 2 not being supported anymore. And then question from Adam. When working with mobile robots, how often do you use navigation stack? Depends what is my responsibility in the project. But if I think almost all the mobile robots, wheeled mobile robots that I worked on use navigation stack in some form. So, the planners and so on differ, but usually the core navigation stack was used. Don't think I've seen anyone looking into things like move base flex or anything else. But this, at least for the projects I've been working with, everyone sticks to the basic navigation stack so far. I think we have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any other questions, this is the best time to ask.
Nope. No more questions. Not for me, at least.
Cool. So we can. Oh, okay. There's some more questions coming in the chat. Do you use the open source packages for navigation stack like AMCL for localization, or there are other options? I didn't use AMCL so much, and I didn't like the fact that with AMCL it's quite probabilistic, so you can start in random place and the robot will be somewhere in this area that's not very specific. And I think the kinds of robots I'm doing, need to know precisely where you are. So that's why I didn't really enjoy the idea of using AMCL. For the packages that I've been using is Slam Toolbox comes a lot. I've really enjoyed it so far. It's quite robust and localization was mostly good most of the time. Cartographer is also one good option, I think. I did play a bit with Iris Llama, and I think I've described it on my blog post as well. And it's when I tested it, it wasn't as robust as Slam Toolbox, for example. But on the other hand, it was really Raspberry Pi friendly, so you could easily run this on Raspberry Pi. And one more for localization, AirTab Map is actually pretty good if you have visual localization. I quite enjoyed it. And then Kay is asking, do you make use of ROS backfiles regularly? Yeah, it's maybe not every day, but at least every week. So it's either a customer shipping some bugs to me for me to review and prototype on sometimes. Backfiles are really good for prototyping, by the way. If you need to do navigation or localization, you can do quite a lot with backfiles as a consultant, so highly recommend that. And also, if you want to plot anything from the backfiles, you can find the bugs quite easy. Well, depends on the bug, of course, but usually it's pretty good. Then Adrian is asking, what's the distribution of computers that you see on the robots? So since, are you asking about the distribution? So what kind of?
mean, like what's the range of compute? Like what are the most common computers that you're seeing on robots?
Yeah, this depends on the project quite a bit. I would say both projects that I'm actively working on now use Intel NUCs actually. And I think they are pretty good. It's a standard computer, so quite good resources and so on. I've been trying a bit to use Jetson Nano for one of the projects, but then I realized it wasn't good enough for all the amount of processing that I needed. Yeah, we had to drop it because when I launched all the nodes, it would take about 1 minute for them to actually start. So it was, yeah, it wasn't working that well. But this project was also quite relatively big. But on Intel NUC, the same software would launch instantly. Unfortunately, don't have any hard data on what was the cause of the issue. But it was significantly worse on Jetson Nano. But I still think Jetson Nano is super cool for prototyping and doing some small things, but probably not with the multi-point LiDAR data in real time. Then Himanshu is asking, you mentioned working with time of flight sensors. Which of them have you worked with? So I worked with in the company called Terabi. So they made, at the time I was working there, they made these single point sensors. So I worked with the whole range they had up until probably early 2018, and then apart from that, I've been using some lidars. Not sure if they are considered TOFs. Probably, yeah. I work with RP lidar, YD lidar, Auster OS1, and real sense cameras as well, but not the latest ones. They are still in my to-do list. The question from Adam is, what kind of code editor do you use? So this will depend on what I'm doing. For large projects, I tend to stick with Visual Studio Code. But if I'm SSH to the robot or I need to edit just one single file, I tend to use Vim. It's usually quite handy. By the way, if you are working on ROS, and you like stuff like Tmax and so on, well, Vim, I really recommend using Tmax as well. So it's really neat way to have multi-session, like multiple tabs of your console, of your terminal. Really interesting. Right.
Last question. What's the coolest robot you've worked on? If you want, if you still have time, of course.
That's a tricky one. There are two that are really, really cool. So I've helped Greensy at one point. So Greensy is making autonomous mowers, and this, their both hardware and software stack is amazing. You should check them out. They're really, really cool. And the second one are the robots from Robotics. So this company that I've mentioned to you that makes this modular robots. They're really both nice looking and really, really effective when you use them. There's this video of them. I will actually attach it in the recording, but in the video it has this something called claw wheels, and it basically rips pallets to shreds on the video. So it's quite exciting. So and the fact that the robots are modular, so you just pick and pick the sensors you want and you attach them in these kind of modules is really good. And it also comes with some challenges. So I've been enjoying these projects quite a lot.